Okay guys, welcome. So today I'm going to go through the answer for Mo Ghrá-sa. Obviously Mo Ghrá-sa is one of the 5 poems in our course. This example in particular is from the year 2020. It's the poetry section of our paper 2 exam, and it's question 3. And as we are aware by now, it's a 30-mark question which is 5% of your exam. It should take between 25 and 27 minutes to do. So there's 3 questions in particular we're going to do. You have about 27 minutes to do all 3, all parts of this together. So it's really important that you're kind of prepared and you know what you're looking to do. And I'm going to talk you through the bits that, I suppose you need to know, you need to be able to do. And more importantly, what the examiner is looking for when going through your answer. Up here, I've typed in the keywords of each question. Príomh-théama and íomhánna. Théama we know is image, príomh-théama is main image. Tomato, tomato. It doesn't make a bloody difference if it's theme or main theme. It's the same bloody thing. Íomhánna is images. Poetry is images. It's the pictures that it creates in your head. So no matter what question you have, images come into it. The images is in the question, so it's just a really easy hint that we want you to talk about the images in this poem. Tidal Arunuk is a very popular question in recent years. A suitable title. And finally, Say Like a Satyr, the Old Faithful, the life and the works of the poet. Okay, so that's what we're looking at here. That's what we're going to answer, and you've got between 25 and 27 minutes to get this answer down on paper. This is my approach to the answer. This is how I feel you will get a H1 when attacking this question. The most important aspect is to have discussion, not to have point after point after point. If you make a point, you must expand and you must discuss it. So that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to start off with the first question here. Cad é príomh-théama an dán Mo Ghrá-sa idirlúibíní hias? What's the main theme of the poem? Mo Ghrá-sa idirlúibíní, dar leat according to you. I.e. it's a personal response. Don't be afraid to give your opinion. Say what you think, because dar leat means I'm asking you. I don't want a cold answer without bits and pieces. I want you to say how you thought about it, what you thought about it. So make sure you give your own opinion here, there, and maybe everywhere. Second one, part of it, den player and the hiava. Play is discussion, and I mentioned that word at the start. Discuss the images that the poet uses to show this theme. So let's go. My first bit here is a general opening to explain the poem, and that's really important. If you want to put an arrow coming out, a bracket coming out of that, you must paint the picture in a poetry question. I probably put in a little bit more here than I need to. Usually I say 5 or 6 sentences to students. I've had the choice here of being able to have more time to do it, so I put in more. Here, paint the picture. Tell the examiner it's a satire and it's a light-hearted, joking poem. Let's go. Is a gra príomh-théama an dán seo. Love is the main theme of this poem. Is a gra príomh-théama an dán seo. Ach ní ghnádan gra é an éoncur. And that's a bit I want you to highlight. Ní ghnádan gra. It's not a normal love poem. Another way to say is dan gra cochínta. It's not a normal love poem. And we're going to explain why. Curran an fila nula ní ghónal. The poet's name is not written in the exam, so it's good to get it in your answer. Show the examiner that you know who wrote it. Put that down. The poem is in front of you, so you can copy your quotes. The poet's name is not. Curran an fila nula ní ghónal. A casa féin, a scale féin. Her own twist an dán gra seo on this love poem. She puts her own twist on this love poem. Is léir ó húsca deara an dán gúil sé mar aimig an villa na sean dánta gra a ira, and highlight this, na sean dánta gra a ira, and that's the most important part in the opening here. It is the poet's aim, tá sé mar aimig an villa, it's the poet's aim, na sean dánta gra a ira, to make a mockery. A ira comes from the word ear, A-O-I-R. The word ear is a satire. Ag ira, satire. So to make a satire, if you don't know what satire means, look it up. It means to make fun of something in a light-hearted way. Is to make a satire of the old love poems. What are the old love poems? What would they usually be about? Let's expand my point. This is the difference between a H1 and a H3. H1 answer, you say that and you move on and you feel good about yourself, you get the job done. That's a H3. A H1 answer, you now expand and explain what do you mean by the old love poems? What are we talking about? So let's have a look here. Sna dánta gra a scríbhtaí fadó. In the love poems that were written long ago. In the love poems that would have been written fadó long ago. Agus le déine and lately. Curtar béim umarchuch. Béim, emphasis. Umarchuch means too much. You could say curtar béim ulvor, huge emphasis. If that word umarchuch is a little bit daunting, use ulvor. Curtar béim ulvor. Chuma agus áiliocht an lanán unto. Highlight that. Chuma on the appearance, Aliocht, on the beauty. So there's an emphasis put, or too much emphasis put on the on the beauty and on the appearance of a loved one. Ní thugtar ein ord, and again this is the point of our poem, this is really what the poem's about. Ní thugtar ein ord farsantucht an lanán. No attention is paid to farsantucht, the personality an lanán of the partner of the loved one. Sna Seadhan De Poire or Seadhan De Poire, agus is léir gur gwyl an chuirsíos ábhéilech ábhéiseach ar chuma an rágeal godíon urhi. So, we have no attention put on the personality, Seadhan De Poire and the love poems, agus is léir gur gwyl, Ghoil means to pain or distress. So, ábhéilech ábhéiseach. Ábhéilech means exaggerated, ábhéiseach means outrageous. So the outrageous, exaggerative descriptions of loved ones annoys the poet. So the poet hates the way that love is portrayed as a beautiful thing and love must be beautiful. And my point here is that it doesn't mean we're going to see that now. We know after this poem that love is about personality, and she wants to put an emphasis on his personality rather than his physical appearance, because that's what's more important to her. Is trí na híomhán na dá leanán na léiríte príomh téimid an dán. This is answering the question now. Highlight this. It's true, the images of her loved one, a léirian, or a léiríte príomh téimid an dán. So the question says, how do the images show the theme? It's the images of her partner, of her loved one, show the main theme of this poem. Mar sin, because of this, Ní Dán Gra Nosfer, beautiful. Ní Dán Gra Nosfer. It's not a typical love poem. Gran Dán Nosfer, a typical love poem. You could even start with that line. It's a nice line to use, not a typical love poem. Éon Dán seo. Is Dán é a léiríonn meon an ile na Seadhan De Poire agus tugad spléiche de dhearce I ghána maidir leis na rudaí atá tábhachtachtaí ina leanán. This bit here, mar sin to a leanán, highlight all of that. Beautiful, lovely phrase to show what this poem is about. Mar sin. Ní Dán Gra Nosfer. It's not a typical love poem, we did that. Is Dána, it's a poem, a léirí, that shows Meona's attitude or mindset. It shows the poet's mindset or attitude towards Seadhan De Poire, towards old love poems. Agus tugtar spléiche. Spléiche means we get a flash, or we get a flashback, or we get a little piece of. Igono's Jarka, her opinion. Igono's opinion when it comes to the things that are important to her in her partner. Na rudí tá tábhachtaí ina leanán, the things that are important to her in her partner. So again, the first part, not about looks, about personality. We see that the poet uses love as a theme, but it's a modern love. Gra knew what I'm sure. There's probably way too much there. It's a H1 all day. You could probably use half of that, but get those key points in. I'm just giving you more so you have a variety then, the choice of words and language you can use. Second part is, now let's get right into the question. You've painted the poem perfectly. You've agreed with the question. You've nearly proven what you've said. You've said what you're going to do. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty details of it. And again, it's all about discussion. You don't have to mention every single example under the sun. You must be able to discuss the ones that you do and back up your point with that. So Ernoi, obviously, paragraph 2. Is a gra and príomh héime tá Seadhan. Obviously love is the main theme in this poem. Agus léirítear an cinál gra tá antrí na híomhán na granamhar le linn an dán. Agus léirítear, to be illustrated. What's illustrated? On cinál gra. And the type of love is illustrated to us through híomhán na granamhara, through funny images. Again, the whole poem is satiric. It's like mugga, joking. It's like stigwaga, mocking. So there's funny images in it. Through na híomhán na granamhara le linn an dán during the poem. Is a gra geal an ille an duine is lorni Seadhan. Gra geal, another way to say like your loved one. The poet's loved one is an duine is lorni, is the person most central in this poem. He is the central person in this poem. Ach ní aimimud cursíos gléinach mar a bheith I gná chan gra. But we don't get a cursíos gléinach. I love this adjective gléinach. It's one I use in all my poetry answers because it's one that not many people know. Gléinach means vivid, and that type of language would really impress an examiner. You might say, why would that impress an examiner? Because everyone says cursíos áling. You might even be show off and say cursíos multach. No one knows the adjective gléinach. It means vivid. So we get a vivid description of what? Mar a bheith I gná dán gra, as we don't get a vivid description of him as we usually would. If you think of any Shakespeare poems, if you here about him talking about his love when you could nearly picture how beautiful he or she was, whatever he was writing about. In this case, we can't really picture what he looks like. There's no beauty to him. She's pointing out on his faults. The word for fault is looked at, and we'll get that intro at the answer. On Gade Lena, from the first line, Nor a dare an fila when the poet says, Níl Mo Ghrá-sa mar bhlach na norni, bantar sheer as an lehor. This is an important point to highlight this. A love poem never starts with a negative sentence. And in this case it does, and that's what we're going to say. You don't say, I love this person, but here's all their faults. That's not what a love poem generally is. A gná don gra. In this case, this is what happens. So bantar sheer as an lehor. The reader is taken aback. We're surprised. Kurtar Ian we're surprised. You don't expect to get a negative opening to a love poem. Next page. Ní minic a hositar an don gra la ratsus jultuk. And this is my point. I don't just say, oh, it surprises us. I'm now explaining in detail why it isn't. That's what an examiner wants to see. Any Tom, Dick and Harry can come up with a sentence similar to the last one. And then they stop. They don't explain it. They don't expand their point. And they move on thinking they're the bee's knees. Not the case. You need to be able to expand your point. Not a one sentence point ever. You made your good point, now expand on it. Here's why. Ní minic a hositar. It's not often. Don Gra, a love poem, is started le ratsus jultuk with a negative statement. And highlight that phrase there. A negative statement. Not often we see a love poem started with a negative statement. Gohoraha especially. Nor na ceann multuk é ach an irid. Especially when it's not a ceann multuk, a positive one either. So we don't often see a poem started with a negative statement, and especially when it's not a praising one either. So there's no praise and it's a negative statement. It's a very unusual opening for a poem. So let's compare that again to what's going on. Mar Gominic, Snashan Dan de Gra, often in the old love poems, curtsy would have been put, rovain, too much emphasis, erandulra, on nature. Because often in old poems, Shakespeare in particular, would put too much emphasis on nature, agus gra, agus alia, between nature, beauty and love. Alright? Léirí an Filíocht Seadhan seo of nach bhfuil a lean an dahul no furfe, agus bantar las as Ivan na alia an dúra chun an difriocht atrihu a léire. Very important point, because my question's in. This is what the examiner wants to see. Each paragraph that you go back and attack the question, and I phrased that perfectly, you attack the words of the question, you take them and then you put them in the centre of your answer to show that you're not waffling, you're not going off topic. And here's what I'm doing. So if you have a different colour highlighter, you'll highlight this here for me and you'll see, look, that I'm answering the question. I've explained what I'm doing and now I'll answer the question here. So the poet shows, nach bhfuil a lean dahul no furfa, that the loved one, a lean just means a loved one, a partner, isn't good looking or perfect, agus bantar lasas, Ivan an alia an dúlra. An advantage is taken. We take advantage of, or the poet takes advantage of, beautiful images from nature. Ivana alia undura. The poet takes advantage of beautiful images from nature. Conan difriocht atrihu aleru, to show the difference between them. Between who, you might ask? Between what is beautiful and the partner who is not. So the poet's using beautiful images from nature to highlight the difference. And if your question says contrast, mine didn't say here, but if it says contrast, you would say Conan Kudersnucht atrihu aleru. You just change that word difriocht to Kudersnucht. Okay? Blach na norni, gordi, nonini. The three flowers there that are mentioned throughout that first piece to show beauty. Curan na hiavana den dulra na shandanta gra agrivna den lehor. Ach is a wallert the churshi sa aimad an lanan shriek dancho. These images of nature remind the reader of old love poems. These images of nature remind the reader of old love poems. Ach, but, here's the point, it's a wallert, the churshi is a ayamud. A wallert is the opposite of. We get the opposite description of the loved one in this certain poem. So we get the opposite of this. So she uses what we would know as beauty and she flips it on her head and uses those beautiful images to say her husband is not like that. And that's what the question asked me to do. So that bit there that I asked you to highlight to the end is really zoning in on what the question wants me to do. And that's the difference between an H1 and a H3. You can state a couple of points, but there I've gone into detail and explained what exactly I'm looking to do. Next bit here. Tá coders noch dan, idir béim an ille, ag tús an dan, agus béim an ille, ag dera an dan. There's a contrast, because now I've pointed out why the husband isn't beautiful. I have to show it's a love poem. So right now it's bullying. Everyone loves a bit of bullying. But in this case, I have to now show, I said it's a love poem, so let's prove how it will be. So there's a contrast between the poet's emphasis at the start and the poet's emphasis at the end of the poem. Why? Cortar an chudersnocht an úl leis an líne agus cumasan. The contrast is portrayed to us or is shown to us through the line agus cumasan, but who cares? That's the line where we get the flick, the crescendo, the change, the transformation. An cléclo, na haraha. What do we get? Fecamut sa versa dernach, we see in the last verse. Go will she ag diru farsantuch the gralge, shakas chuma is a cool. Fecamut sa versa dernach, we see in the last verse that she is ag diru focusing on the personality of her loved one instead of physical appearance. And that's the whole message of this poem, that she's focusing in on the personality rather than the looks. Is léir gemín sé jas lehi agus darla nula ní honal is far sin har dinna is all you know is furfa down. It's clear that dinna jas, nice and simple. He's a nice person to her. How? We have words like flahul, kinalte, generous, kind, flahulucht, kinastocht, whatever you want to use there. It's clear that he's nice. Agus is far shin, that's better. Har an dinna is all you know is furfa down. That it's better to have someone who's nice rather than an duine is Alia, the most beautiful person, no an duine is Furfa, the most perfect person in the world. Murabunnen, agus na Seadhan De Poire. Unlike the old love poems, lagtar beim an sais duine atá sa lanan. Lagtar beim an emphasis is put on, lagtar beim an emphasis is put on sais duine, the type of person atá sa lanan, that the loved one is, instead of an chuma, a wilair, no urhi, instead of the Kuma, the appearance that he or she has. Instead of using the word kuma, you can use the word dahulucht as well, if you want to make it slightly different. Appearance, good looks. Same thing, but you know, you can use different words there. We don't just have to use the words in the answer. I could write 10 answers on this, but this is the one I've chosen because this will get you your H1. And what I'm doing here, guys, is not to go off topic. I told you it was a love poem. I showed the start of it's an unusual love poem. It's different. I'm highlighting the differences. Here I'm showing that there is love to it, and the ending is what the love is, and that image at the end, the fifth stanza, shows us the love clearly. Is Iaval Glocha Tasa Kudern. Glocha is cute. It's nice. There's a nice, cute image at the end. Tuganche Domula is Noravinche Inya Umar Quera Fanuna. He brings me apples, and when in good form, grapes. Kainok Gra Mayfiak Sulesh. Highlight this. Even though it's not love you would be expecting in a love poem, it's not the type of love you expect in a love poem. Is Kincha Gowill, Parsantoch, the Wadnis Tavakti, not Dina Dahul. It's clear that personality is way more important than Dahuluch, than good looks. Okay? So it's clear that personality is way more important than good looks. So that's me kind of getting back to the point that there is love, and the love is there because she's showing that she values is Tavakti more important, Nis Luch for a more valuable, Is Luch for the most valuable. And that's what the examiner wants to see. Show me how there's a different type of love. Next paragraph here. Last bit to summarise. Let's close off my answer. Let's go. Curran an filan tachtrach shonudon lehor shrive gira in the Seadhan De Poire. On tachtrach, the message. The poet portrays or shows this message shrive gira by satiring or making a satire of the old love poems, agus na hívana ávéileke, and the exaggerated images that was in them often. So the poet has an important message by making a mockery of the old love poems and the exaggerated images that would have been in them often. It's a príomh héim an dan Sean Mo Ghrá. The main theme of this poem is love. Ach, mar a léiríonn sí an deireadh, but as she shows at the end, is dina canasta cordial agus ceurach an lana. As she shows us at the end, the husband is kind, friendly and helpful. Agus is tavakti shin, and that's more important. Na farfurfa dahul. That's more important than a perfect, good-looking man who's as beautiful as flowers and nature. What I did there in the closing is I summarised my answer, but I'm going to stop for a second and pointing out the difference between a H1 and a H2. I'll explain what the difference between H1 and H3 is. The difference between a H1 and a H2 is when we get to that concluding paragraph, do you have more to offer? And you might say, what do I mean like that? I, as an examiner, what am I looking for? I'm looking that you can get the same message across. You can tell me the same thing again, but I don't want you to repeat any language. There must be a variety of vocab, a variety of language, a clear effort by you to show that you don't have to use the same words that you've used above. So a huge tip I would always give students is, and you'll see it in my answers, that when we get to that concluding paragraph, that we don't just have the same material that we've spat out above. We have different material held back and reserved, so we can really hammer home the point and show the examiner that we're a H1 student and we're able to use different language to portray the same message as I've done there. Okay, that's our 15-mark question, guys. Good job. Okay, guys, part 2. Question that's become very common. A suitable title. Because everyone knows for years that in the previous years they were asking, it was first of all, what's the strongest emotion? Then we got too good at that. Then they started asking about, how did it impact you? We got pretty good at that. So in the last year or two, what they've been looking at doing, in 2020, 2021, they've asked you, is it a suitable title? So, of course we're going to say yes. We're always going to agree with the question. But we need to have a valid reason why. It's the type of thing that on the day of an exam, you're not going to come up with. So it's important to have a valid reason about if you agree or disagree with this. So, is Tijil Arunach Erandan e Mo Ghrá-sa Darlum? Again, it's a personal response. It is a suitable title. Mo Ghrá-sa Idrulabini Darlum. Key point to mention here. Look at this bloody title. My loved one. In between brackets. Written in between brackets. You need to mention that. That's key to success here. It's key to a H1. Other people say, oh yes, it's great. There's love, so it is suitable. And there's love in the title. We want to get something about the brackets in. The only poem that has brackets, so we need to mention that. That's why it's suitable. Erdús cé nach dán gra nos for a. First of all, cé nach dán gra nos for a. Even though it's not a typical love poem, is dán fui gra geal an ille atá an. It's a poem about gra geal an ille, about the poet's loved one. Agus tugann she cursius an ginál duine é, and she describes the type of person that he is. So first of all, it's not a typical love poem. It's a poem about the poet's loved one. Agus is tugann she cursius an ginál duine é, and she gives us a description about the type of person that he is. Is léir there an dán go bhfuil she in ngrá leis. It's clear at the end of the poem go bhfuil she in ngrá leis that she is in love with him. I should vary with the man. Agus curran sé seo an uil go bhfuil an cuid seo den tidal tilta agus arúnach. And this shows us, léiríonn sé seo doing, this illustrates to us, same as curran sé an uil doing, that this part of the title is deserved. So I'm splitting it in two. So because we've proven at the end that there is love there, that she does love him, Mo Ghrá-sa, my loved one, is tilta agus arúnach. Tilta, it's deserved. Arúnach, it's suitable. And then we go again. An dara cuid den tidal, the second part of the title. Idir lubini, in between brackets, as I've written there. Ceapan go bhfuil sé cui, I think it's right. Ceapan go bhfuil sé ceart, I think it's right. It's correct. Mar go léiríonn sé, because it shows. Go bhfuil rud éigin éagsúil faoin dán seo, that there's something unusual about this poem. There's something different about this poem. Agus go mé rol ag na lúbíní le linn an dán, and that the brackets will have a role to play during this poem. So if there wasn't going to be brackets in the poem, there was no reason to put them up here. So it's like my loved one between brackets. And in between brackets is where we get the honesty in this poem. Bonan an fila úsáid cliste as na lúbíní. The poet makes clever use of the brackets in this poem. Agus fectar agus solar gur ír amachas amach atá na hívána seo na sean dánta grá fadó. The poet makes clever use of the brackets. And we see that it's an out-and-out satire. The images are an out-and-out satire of the old love poems. Ní hén chláise Gilberty, the hula had roll come does okay? So what we're saying there is that it's very clever because the brackets show us that it's a satire. Because where does the humour come in? If you want to add even something in like Fecamud an grans na lúbíní or Fecamud an irne, we see the truth in the brackets. So between brackets is where you see the truth. Ní ganá dán grá é seo. This is not a usual love poem. It's not a usual love poem. This is to summarise. Agus curtar é seo an uil tríd an tidal, and this is shown through the title. Highlight that. That's the most important bit of all. It's good to split it into two, because the H1 student will see that there's two parts to this. It's my loved one, and then it's the humorous bit between brackets. It's not a normal love poem, so why have a normal title? That's my train of thought, and that's what I think will impress examiners. So it's not a normal love poem, and this is shown through the title. Gohora and Daraquid, especially the second part of the title. Okay, so how did I tack that? Tack this bit, I tack that, and then finally the last bit is highlight that title's unusual, the poem is unusual, so it all matches, it's suitable that way, it's deserved. Okay, so that's our second question done. Of course, that was a 6-mark question. And finally then, the poet's life. Remember, what am I looking for here? Although it's a 9-mark question, we know it's only valued at 7 really. My rule of thumb is you can give me, 2 stats about the life. What they're looking for really is 2 stats about the life, 1 about the work. However, don't do the bare minimum on simple questions. If you want to come across as a H1 student, when I see 4 sentences written about the poet's life, it doesn't indicate to me that you're a strong H1 student. H1 students go above and beyond. The essay is the perfect example. It says 500 to 600 words. Anyone who gets a H1 writes over 600 words. So don't fall into the trap of, it only says this in the marking scheme, or examiners only want this. Go above and beyond if you want to be in the top 5%. And that's what the H1 is, the top 5% of any given year. Rugach Nula Nigonal, get her name wrong, 0. That's important, so highlight that. She was born in 1952 in England. She could Dun Queen Lina Oiga, but she moved to Dun Queen during her youth. Again, we start off always with her life and then work our way into her works. She studied in Merlagus and Gaelia. She studied Irish and English in UCC, Ulskull, Naherden, Kirkig, Cork, basically. University College Cork. Vunchi in Ulskull in America. She taught in universities in America. Ta Cather, Foshti, Eki, 4 children. She has 4 children. Ta right what Lauer, now I'm going into her work. So that's the sale boxed off. Plenty of information there, more than you even need, but they're all simple things to remember. Her works. Ta right what Lauer Falsche Eki. She has published right what Lauer Filíocht. She has published a good amount of poetry books. Far Sunnasach, Kiad Einish, Agus Spunan is Rosana. Again, just write them down, get them in. They're the name of the poetry book she has published. There's no getting around. This is the bit the students are lazy about. They say, I'll just learn loads about her life and won't mention much about her works. I need an equal amount on both. There's the name of the 3 bits, and I'm also going to name a drama now as well. So if you only want to learn 2 of the poetry names, maybe 1 of the drama, that's fine. Skrishia drama choma, she wrote a drama also. On Ulfeish Grana. On Ulfeish Grana is the name of the drama. Marhampla, for example. Okay? You can nearly finish there, but to show off I throw 2 extra points in. But it's fine if you want to finish there. I've got loads. I have 3 pieces of poetry. I have 1 drama that she's written, and I have about 5 or 6 facts about her life. That's perfect. Last 2 points though, just to really show off. Bavinica Skrishi fi Roll the Mon Sasuki. It was often she wrote about women's role in society. And why would I put that there? Well, I would only put that there, guys, in for 1 reason. And the 1 reason only that I would put that there is that it shows that you have a deeper understanding of her poetry, that you've done a little history into it. You're not just one of these students who said, oh right, my teacher said this, write this down. A H1 student can go off and see things by themselves. And even though I'm giving it to you, you don't have to tell anyone that. You can say that you know what a lot of her poetry is about. Agus sail na clina and family life. Is bald the Ace Dana E. Is faidla he Shay Tonga Lar Khalifa. Look, 2 more points. She's a member of Ace Dana and she's able to speak 6 languages fluently. Okay? That's your answer there, Nula Nigonal. Again, those last 2 sentences, you don't really need them, but I like to put them in. I like to show my H1 students that they have a deep understanding of not only the poem, but maybe some of the background information on the poet as well. So that's your full question there. And as we've spoken there about everything, each question has a purpose, there's a point, and we answer the question. We don't summarise and give facts and become storytellers. We give valid points, we discuss, we expand, and we answer the questions that we're asked to do, especially in part 1 and part 2. Question 3, it's do you sit down, do you learn the material? If you learn that, and this poem comes up, you get your full marks. It's very simple. That there is a H1. You've got the materials now, just get it on paper. Very best of luck with that, guys. We'll talk again soon.